Alice Gross is actually a completely normal girl. The 14-year-old lives in London and enjoys life in the big city. She does well at school and has a large circle of friends. And everything is fine at home too. The Gross family is very close. Alice also has a very close relationship with her older sister, Nina. Alice is very talented musically. She sings and plays several instruments, and despite her young age, she already composes her own songs. Perhaps Alice could have turned her passion into a career at some point. If she hadn't met someone in 2014 who had sinister intentions for her. Alice enjoys taking long walks through the city. Sometimes she walks around London for hours. And that's exactly what she plans to do on August 28, 2014. It's summer vacation. Alice leaves her family's home in London Hanwell at around 1 p.m. She tells her mother that she will be home by 6 p.m. at the latest. Alice walks along the Grand Union Canal, her usual route for walks. At 3:45 p.m., surveillance cameras capture her at Brentford Lock on the edge of the canal. At 4:26 p.m., she is last recorded on Trumper's Way along the Grand Union Canal. Shortly afterwards, she sends her father a message. She lets him know that she is slowly making her way home and will be back soon. But she never arrives. Alice's parents react very quickly, as the 14-year-old is usually very reliable. When she's not home at 6 p.m. as promised, her parents immediately realize that something is wrong. Less than an hour later, at around 7 p.m., they have already filed a missing person report. Initially, the measures taken are extensive but routine. Alice is 14 years old, knows her way around the local area well, and was out and about in busy places in central London on a holiday. What's more, her parents reported her missing immediately. So it is assumed that the girl will be found quickly. The Metropolitan Police question Alice's friends. The apartments and houses of people in her circle are searched, as are parks throughout London. And of course, the route Alice usually takes on her walks. But none of this helps. Alice Gross remains missing. And Alice does not come home on the night of August 28th to 29th either. Posters showing Alice are put up all over West London. Although Alice's family is overwhelmed with worry, her parents and sisters come up with a special campaign to draw attention to her disappearance. They hang yellow ribbons on trees, traffic signs, and landmarks in Ealing. Soon, people in Ealing are wearing yellow shirts printed with the hashtag number sign Find Alice. This catches everyone's attention, of course, and ensures that all the major British media outlets report on the girl's disappearance. Soon, almost everyone knows Alice Gross's picture. And that is, of course, essential in a missing person investigation. The police are also on the case with more than 600 searchers. It is one of the largest search operations ever conducted in London. But days pass before the first clues are found. And these clues will greatly diminish the family's hopes. On September 4th, the police released the images from the surveillance cameras I told you about. These are the last images showing Alice alive. They also announced that Alice's backpack has been found. And inside this backpack are the shoes she was wearing when she disappeared. The blue Vans definitely belong to the missing person. However, other personal items belonging to Alice are missing, including her iPhone. And that would of course be extremely interesting and would help the police. The backpack is found near Ealing Hospital. This clinic has its own ward for sex offenders. The discovery of the backpack in the vicinity of the hospital brings Ealing Hospital into the focus of the investigation. All of this naturally fuels terrible fears, as do the events of the following days. On September 6th, an arrest is made. A 25-year-old man is arrested in Ealing. He is suspected of murdering Alice Gross. No further information is available at this time. Instead, the police are searching for several witnesses with the help of photographs. Surveillance cameras captured cyclists at the spot where Alice was last seen. They may have observed something important. Later, more details about the 25-year-old suspect become known. He was arrested on the basis of a tip from the public. According to this tip, he's said to have had a shovel, large garbage bags, and ropes in his trunk around the time of Alice's disappearance. These are items that could presumably be used to dispose of a body. When questioned, the suspect refuses to comment on why he had these items in his car. One day later, on September 7th, a second man was arrested. He is 51 years old and is also suspected of killing Alice Gross. The police emphasize that the two arrests were made independently of each other. This means that the 51-year-old suspect was not incriminated by the previously arrested man. Meanwhile, the search continues to focus on the area around the Grand Union Canal. The canal itself is being searched by divers and sniffer dogs are being used on the banks. As the water in the canal is muddy, the search is painstaking work. The divers have to feel their way centimeter by centimeter with their hands because nothing can be seen in the murky water. On September 8th, both suspects are released after thorough questioning. The suspicions against them could not be substantiated. Why the second man was suspected and what exactly came out during the interrogations of the two will never be disclosed to the public. Although the two men were arrested on suspicion of murder and the homicide squad is investigating, the police emphasize that this is a missing person case. They say they still have hope of finding Alice alive and bringing her home, even though she has already been missing for a week at this point. This hope is based primarily on facts that were not known to the public at the time. The police know from the family that Alice has been struggling with depression and an eating disorder for some time. Before her disappearance, the Gross family had therefore sought professional help for her. So it is possible that Alice wanted to escape these problems by running away. That is why Alice's parents and sister Nina repeatedly address personal messages to the missing girl in interviews.
Alice, we love you, we miss you, we're desperate for you to be home again. We miss you as a daughter, and Nina misses you as a sister. We want our family to be whole again. We miss everything about you, and we just want you to know how much we want you with us, because home is where you belong.
On September 16, 2014, another appeal for information is issued. By this point, Alice has been missing for more than 2 weeks. The search is for a 41-year-old construction worker named Anis Zalkalns. He's from Latvia but lives with his partner and 1-year-old daughter in Ealing, London. The police are interested in him because he disappeared shortly after Alice's disappearance on September 3rd, and because his commute to work takes him along Alice's walking route. 2 days later, Zalkalns is officially named as a suspect. The police have found further footage from surveillance cameras. It shows him on his bike not far from the path that both he and Alice took. There, he disappears from a section of the path for more than half an hour, even though this section only takes 5 minutes to cycle. In other words, something must have stopped Anis on the path where Alice Gross disappeared. Later that day, he's recorded in a supermarket. His trouser legs are rolled up, as if he had been wading through knee-deep water, for example. The next morning, Anis is filmed turning onto the path that he and Alice had both taken the day before. He spends some time there and then returns from the fork in the path. The police assume that he returns to this location several times to examine the suspected crime scene and to make sure that he has not left any traces behind. Anis Zalkalns is certainly capable of violent crime. It later emerges that he has already served time in prison in his home country for murder. Rudit Zalkalns was only 22 years old when she was murdered by her then-husband Anis. When the two met, Anis seemed to be a loving and attentive partner. He showed Rudit a lot of affection and showered her with gifts. The couple had a daughter together in 1995 and got married. However, the relationship began to falter, partly because Anis was having an affair with another woman. In 1996, an argument between the two escalated. During the argument, Anis threatened his wife with a gun. A shot was fired, hitting the young woman in the stomach. Anis then claims that Rudit was shot by a motorcycle gang. But Rudit confides in her mother and tells her how she really got the gunshot wound, namely, from her own husband. She refuses to report her husband to the police, presumably out of fear. In March 1997, Anis lures Rudit into a forest. There, he hits her on the head with a scaffolding pole and then stabs her. He then buries the young woman's body. Later, he admits to having dug the grave beforehand. So he planned the murder. Anis initially claims to the Latvian police that Rudit has disappeared without a trace. However, the police investigate carefully and find Rudit's diary. The entries are reason enough to suspect Anis of her murder. In July 1997, Rudit's body is found in the forest. The following year, Anis is charged with her murder and convicted. After serving 7 years of his sentence, he's released in early 2005. He marries a new woman. His daughter Elvira, from his marriage to Rudit, finds out about this. She warns the woman about her father. In 2007, he moves to England. There, he works as a construction worker, marries again, and has a daughter. Furthermore, there is absolutely no indication in his British records that he is a convicted murderer. And that, of course, is a gross bureaucratic error. The Latvian conviction is not included in his British criminal record. As a result, he's considered to have no criminal record in his new home country. In 2009, Anis Zalkalns is suspected of abusing a 14-year-old girl in London Ealing. However, the case is dropped because the victim is unable to provide sufficient evidence to support her accusation. If Anis's records had stated that he had previously murdered a woman, the proceedings might have continued. This is pure speculation, but it is difficult to imagine that a murder conviction would not have influenced the investigation. However, because there was nothing on paper for the British police to act on, he was released without any consequences. And 5 years later, he becomes a suspect in the Alice Gross missing person case. The obstacle is that he himself disappears just a few days after Alice's disappearance. This makes him even more suspicious to the police, but also makes the investigation extremely difficult. While Anis is still missing, his apartment in Ealing is being examined by forensic investigators. There, the police find a red track mountain bike. And as it becomes known, Anis rode this very mountain bike along the path Alice last walked 15 minutes after she was last seen. Anis Zalkalns is therefore believed to have been one of the cyclists who were initially asked to come forward as witnesses. He apparently did not comply, as he has been completely out of sight since September 3rd. Anis had only recently moved to London Ealing. He previously lived in the Hanwell district, just like Alice. The police also search his old address in Hanwell and seize another bicycle. The British police begin to work closely with investigators from Latvia. They request access to the criminal file on the murder of Anis's wife, in the hope of gaining a more accurate picture of the man. In addition, the search for Anis is extended to other European countries. And after more than a month of hope, the Gross family is faced with sad certainty. On September 30th, Alice Gross's body is found in the River Brent. Her body was wrapped in a large plastic bag. She is dressed in only a single sock and bound. This plastic bag was tied to a wheel, which was weighted down with stones to prevent it from floating to the surface. The person who deposited her body there took great care to hide it. Tree trunks were even rolled over the body in the riverbed to hide the wheel and the bag containing the corpse as effectively as possible. An autopsy determined the cause of death to be suffocation. This was probably caused by a person significantly heavier than Alice crushing her. For example, by lying on top of her. Cigarette butts with Anis's DNA are found near the location where the body was found. His DNA is also found on Alice's blue Vans, which were found in her backpack, as well as in Alice's genital area. Anis Zalcons is still missing and therefore cannot comment on the allegations against him. Despite his absence, the evidence against him continues to mount. The case of Alice's iPhone, which is still missing, is found under the terrace of his apartment. And the only explanation for this find is, of course, that Anis took the phone. On October 4th, 2014, Anis's Zalcons is finally found, but he is already dead. His body is found in a secluded spot in a wooded area in Boston Manor Park. He hanged himself from a tree there, probably about a month ago. So, quite shortly after his disappearance and the high-profile search for Alice. Had he still been alive and been found, Anis's Zalcons would have been charged with the murder of Alice Gross. He avoided this by taking his own life. This can be interpreted as an admission of guilt. But the alleged murderer took the secrets surrounding Alice's death with him to his grave. After Alice's murder, her family established a foundation in her memory, the Alice Gross Youth Music Memorial Fund. The foundation provides children in socially disadvantaged environments with access to music education. Alice herself dreamed of becoming a musician one day. Her cruel murder robbed her of this dream. The Gross family hopes that the foundation can now pass on Alice's dream to others, and that Alice can live on in the dreams and compositions of others. That brings us to the end of today's video. Once again, a case that can be considered solved. Feel free to write your thoughts below the video because your comments are the most important form of feedback for me. And of course, I would be delighted if you liked this video and subscribed to Insolito. Other than that, there's not much else to say. Thank you very much for watching and for all your support. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching the video. And I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye everyone.